Imagine with me a scenario in which your status quo is shattered. And imagine being alone, uncertain of your future, yet the world having endless possibilities that all seem so far away, yet possible. You consider yourself smart. You've prepped and studied for these circumstances, and yet it wasn't enough. The specter haunting you came too soon. There is still so much you don't know, so much you're yet to uncover, but you do know enough. Enough to play the game, or at least to know how bad your odds are. And to know that they aren't safe, that you must make a sacrifice, that you're the only one who can make this sacrifice. So, you're convinced you must. That was your first mistake. Now, you must face a seemingly unbeatable entity that will act as a threat to everything you love. You will fight with this entity for what seems to be all of time, or at least until you fold, for that is the rule the entity plays by. You know these rules all too well. However, you know you're not perfect. You're only mortal. You cannot keep up with it forever, yet you must keep fighting. It is your duty, your curse of character. You must continue and make sure your story, their story, lives on and isn't lost to time. But as the sacrifices you make and the tolls they take on you get larger and larger, and as you tire from exhaustion and insanity, a dreading feeling does creep its way into your mind. Doubt. You've already isolated yourself in paranoia. Now, you can't even trust yourself. You're not quite sure how you got in this situation, but you know it's your fault. Somehow. Your fate's already been set in stone. You've probably already lost. The entity wouldn't take a fight it would lose, right? Either you've overestimated it, or maybe this really will last an eternity. Even if you could win, you don't really know what winning could mean against an entity like this, or what would come next. Well, no point worrying about that now. You've got a job to do. Now, my inability to say entity aside, this type of story, or trope I guess, is probably my favorite, or maybe second favorite type of story. Well, I do like deductive world building with places far past their prime, or running away from society with someone I love, sacrificing my normal life. That's somewhere up there. What can I say? I love a good story, but this trope specifically has always stuck with me. I don't know if it has a name or how I'll even find the name for it, so I'm gonna jump the gun. Is that what I'm saying? I'm jumping the gun. I'm planning my own name until further notice. You henceforth shall be known as Schrödinger's Inevitability. It's a work in progress, but basically the entity is so strong that defeat is inevitable. However, the character is still given a choice. It's either between giving up and dying in peace, or fighting potentially forever for a small chance at victory. Probably suffering in the process. Well, if it's forever, then you're obviously going to be suffering in the process. I wouldn't want to do anything forever. I think this works best when giving up is the smart choice, but the character feels forced to by their personality, like they're just a flawed human being, like most characters are. Or when the entity isn't another character, like the entity is actually themselves, or like some like force of nature or something like that, you know? And there's many examples that come to mind. I'm sure you're aware of them already. I probably showed some images. Sans in Undertale versus the player. In FNAF, we get Afton versus Death. There was that immortal snail trend where like you get to live forever, but the snail touches you, you die. That kind of fits perfectly. And I think Rick and Morty is like Rick versus Rick. I only watched one season, sorry. But the first time I remember grappling with Schrödinger's Inevitability, trademark, I think was Dipper's laptop in Gravity Falls. The dilemma was basically Dipper getting a laptop that had all the answers he ever wanted, but it was password locked, no biggie. However, after trying a bunch, he finds out he guessed too much and only has one guess left. If he guesses wrong, everything on the laptop will be deleted, so he has two options. Guess with near impossible odds, or give up and never see the information, at least not in the short term, but it won't be deleted, so he maybe come back later with more information. Okay, never mind. I just watched the episode again. There was actually a timer as well, so it would have been deleted either way, unless he made the deal with Bill. which I guess is another form of it because he knew he was going to be backstabbed. But either way, it still would have ended in failure. So while not a perfect example, it still matches and has stayed in my mind nonetheless. I think the allure of this is sort of that it's a symbol of our struggle as humans, or I guess conscious beings, and also the permanence of failure or something, I don't know. Either way, the reason I'm talking about this is, one, because I love these stories, but also, I attempted to make a character based off of this. Well, okay, the character is based off of two things: the entity of Schrödinger's inevitability, and trying to make the most evil character possible, but with good intentions, while still intending to do bad. Okay, that makes no sense. Basically, I was looking at some basic psychology and philosophy stuff, and there was this debate over morality. Now, I'm pretty material-minded, so the conversation was a little yucky. But the core of it was basically, can someone be evil if they're in the right, or if they think they're in the right, or they think they're doing good? And I mean, obviously, yes, Hitler. That's a pretty obvious example of someone thinking they're doing good and doing evil. But there was some caveat, so I decided, fine, let me cook. So I created a character, named it Antitheus, to sort of prove that you can have good intentions and still be evil. Of course, there's no way to really prove this, since morality is subjective, at least in my eyes. So evil to one person means an entirely different thing to another, but that's besides the point. Antitheus, they're this omniscient monotheistic deity that kind of just appeared into existence with reality. They can see all future outcomes of themselves and has full domain over mental and material planes, allowing them to be extremely calculated. They observe the development of humanity, and seeing how people are molded by the conditions and experiences they have, they adopt this sort of meritocratic worldview where the strongest people are superior to those with no experience. You can kind of see where it's getting at. So they decide, hey, we have all these weak people on the planet. If the planet was populated by the strong and ran by the strong, things would be a lot better, because obviously the strong people are going to be way better leaders because they're stronger people. Surely great men will be great leaders. I mean, without great men, there'd be no men at all. That's sort of like the conservative outlook. So they go to people in their dying moments, and basically as they're doing this, they're just in a sort of coma. I mean, they're already sort of dead, but they're like right on death's door. Everything that's happening is going on like in the span of a second for them. Well, not for them, like in real life, but to them it's lasting for like eternity. And basically Antitheus says, hey, you're about to die. Either you can stay dead, or you can try to pass my test and I'll bring you back. And what they basically do is torture these people by exploiting their biggest weakness. And if they somehow pass the test, they get to go back, but with these amazing hyper-specific powers. And if they fail, they just go back normally, which is basically torture. In this world, no one wants to be on Earth because it's ruled by these tyrants, these people that get to go back with these great powers. Because sort of the type of people that would pass these tests are kind of kooky. You don't want to be around these people. I had some examples written down, but I lost them. So like, here's an example coming straight off the dome. Like, Antitheus will make you look at a wall for a straight 1,000 years. And if you ever look away or you ever blink, like while taunting you, by the way, they'll probably be standing right behind you. Like if you ever look away, if you ever blink, you have to either restart or you fail instantly. Or it'll be something like, I'm going to spawn in these replicas or these mental fabrications of your family, and you have to eat them raw and whole. And if you miss like a single crumb, you have to repeat the whole thing. And if you give up, then you fail. Like including the skeletons and all that. There's some crazy stuff. And the thing is, everybody takes a challenge. No one wants to be dead. Well, few people want to be dead, but rarely do people decide, hey, I'm going to pass up the challenge. It's like Squid Game, X Infinity Train, X, I don't know, God. To clarify, this isn't an accidental thing like, oh no, I sent people down to become tyrants. No, this is an intentional decision. They've created this ideology and they're telling these people, reinforcing it in their minds and saying, hey, go down, mess stuff up, make people's lives harder, make it hell, and just make these people stronger, harden them, make them more ruthless. because, that'll make stronger people in their eyes. That's all. And while Antitheus might be a little sadistic, in their heart they want to protect all life and makes it very hard to die, causing people to suffer down there, building quote-unquote character. And to be fair, it does create good people. Like, all around the world you see lots of mini communities that spring up are very self-reliant or self-dependent because they need to be together to fend off from these crazy tyrants going around with these powers. And also, people are just living for like 1,000 years. People just, they died and just come straight back, either like reincarnated or just waking up, which allows for a lot of exploitation because people know there's no real risks here. You're not gonna die. And truthfully, Antitheus doesn't want power and is known by very few people. They're a very secretive person. They only revive people with consent, and they try to stay out of humanity, in large part because it's part of their core philosophy. They believe strongly in honor and proving oneself. They don't want to interfere with this quote-unquotational natural process, in part because they just love seeing people beat the odds, which is a pretty universal feeling, I feel like. We love seeing the underdog win. The whole point of me saying this is they pretty much force people to go through Schrödinger's inevitability to become stronger, and I find that very compelling. Anyway, that's all. Bye.